Mic check. Mic check, everybody. How y'all doing tonight? Mic check. We make sure it can be heard. Before we get started, okay, looks like we are good for the mic check. We are good for the mic check. This is Shabazz with the what? Shabazz with the what? Shabazz with the proper perspective. Getting ready to come to you live.
Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection, and whose mouth is mumbling, trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection, and whose mouth is mumbling, trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. Break.
All right, everybody, how y'all doing? What's going on? It is Sunday, February 16th. Do you know today's degree? That's knowledge equality, unless I'm mistaken. But knowledge equality creates what? Wrong. No, I'm wrong. Knowledge equality creates build. I don't even know today's degree. What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing? This is Shabazz with the proper perspective. We about to get it live. We're about to get it started tonight. I'm coming to you live on multiple platforms. So if you're familiar with me a little bit, then you know I got to do a couple of station breaks and a couple of checks, space checks, so to speak, because I can't always tell if everything is working correctly. I'm coming to you live on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. So as I do these checks and wait to see if anybody is joining the see if anybody's going to join me in the chat room. Yeah, I got a couple of people coming on in. Let's see. What's going on, everybody? I got a couple people in the chat room. That's good. We are going to get started tonight. Tonight's topic is, do white people hate us? Tonight's topic is, do white people hate us? At least that's the buzzword I'm trying to use to get y'all to come on and tune in. Let's see what's going on. So shout out to my chat room people. Shout out to my Instagram people. Let me see if I can find this Facebook page. You know, this thing puts it these automatic updates that they notifications that they put out there ain't the best. Putting stuff in places I don't necessarily know. But as I get it started, it looks like I definitely got some people listening on Instagram. If you are on Instagram, I do thank you for showing up, but I would appreciate it if you came on over to YouTube so you can see. I will be sharing the screen and playing a couple of videos and discussing those. So you won't be able to see those on Instagram. And to be perfectly frank, my phone may die on me because that's how I'm coming to you on Instagram. So if you're on Facebook, I would probably say the same thing. Facebook may die out on me as well. So if that happens, if Facebook dies out, then you know why. You know why. So just feel free to come on over to my YouTube page. YouTube.com/at the proper perspective. That's youtube.com/at the proper perspective. That's how you find me on YouTube. So whether you're tuning in tonight on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, or what have you, your best bet is to come on over to youtube.com/at the proper perspective. What are we talking about tonight? We're talking about Marimba Ani, Dr. Marimba Ani. If you know, if you recognize, then you already know. I said it was February, so February is Black History Month, as we all know. And what I'm doing in February is trying to highlight significant and important contributions from significant and very important Black people, particularly in America, but not only in America, but Black people who have given us something that helps us understand what's going on. So a lot of times, or what I've been doing is I've been saying I'm going to give a shout out to an ancestor or an elder. If you've been tuning in, I gave a shout out to Dr. Francis Cress Wilson. I gave a shout out to Carter G. Woodson. Each night or each shout out stream, each shout out episode, I do a little bit of a deep dive into something that they were working on, building for, helping us figure out. So tonight, I'm giving a shout out to Dr. Marimba Ani. Now, you may not have heard of her, but if you're in these YouTube streets or if you're in this conscious community, then even if you haven't heard of her, you may have heard of one of the terms that she helped coin. She coined the phrase ma'afa, which is a Kiswahili term, and it technically is defined as great disaster. But she's one of the ones that helped coin the phrase or let that be the name that we refer to the transatlantic slavery era. So rather than give it a name strictly in English, well, it certainly wasn't an activity that was involved only with the English. It was an activity that involved almost all of the European countries. So why situated in a European language? Situated in an African language. She chose Kiswahili. Many of the revolutionaries from yesterday gravitated towards Kiswahili as the primary language that we in the West should be looking at, focusing on, studying, learning, and speaking. It gives us the opportunity to, one, learn a new language, learn a second language. As you know, most people in America in general only speak one language. That's an American thing. America likes to dumb down a lot of stuff. So what the Black revolutionaries of the 60s and the 70s said is we owe it to ourselves to learn at least one additional language. That language should be Kiswahili. Now, it ain't got to be Kiswahili. If you feel the drive, if you feel the spirit telling you learn something from West Africa, I'm right there with you. I personally have been trying to study Igbo. I personally have been trying to study Akan, or not Akan, because that's not the name of the language, Twi from Ghana. I personally have been trying to look at Wolof from Senegal and a couple of other places, but but I have looked at Kiswahili as well. I've dibbled and dabbled a little bit. But again, Dr. Marimba Ani is who I'm giving a shout out to tonight, because she has done quite a few extensive deep dives. People like to say sometimes you get going and you go down the rabbit hole. She's got a deep well of information for us to dive into. So again, tonight I'm giving a shout out to the elder, Dr. Marimba Ani. And one of the questions we are trying to answer tonight is, do white people hate us? Or rather, even more specifically, why do white people hate us? It's almost a foregone conclusion that at least a large percentage of white people do have something that they harbor against Black people. And I mean all Black people. It's not just a Black American thing. You can, if you're African and you went to the Ukraine, you've experienced the white people in Ukraine who hate you for your blackness. If you are African and you've been to France, you've experienced the French people who hate you for your blackness. So it's not just an American situation. It's a thing that anytime this melanin over here gets exposed, gets to hanging around the melanatedly challenged, the palm colored people, the envelopians, some hate-based activities start to grow, start to blow up like mushroom clouds. And the question is why? Lots of people have tackled this issue. Lots of people have tackled this topic. And tonight we're going to do a bit of a dive into Dr. Marimba Ani's research and work on the topic. So, if you are familiar with the channel, then you also already know this is sort of like my salute to the Pan-African scholars, my salute to the African revolutionaries. And one of the other things that I do is I cover, I cover a couple of things, but I'm gonna try to keep it brief. Let me see if I can pull up some of the things that we need to start talking about tonight. So let me share my screen. So what you're seeing, and again, if you are paying attention on Instagram or Facebook, this would be one of the reasons why I would say if you come on over to YouTube, you get to see a little bit more. You get to see more because I'm sharing my screen to give a couple of reflections on Dr. Marimba Ani's work. And one of the things that she dealt with and delved into was this term called Yurugu. Now, if you haven't heard of Yurugu, you might be like, what? What? What is that? What that sound like? So let me see. Let me see if I can get this going. Get this going if you bear with me. So this is just a visual depiction, an illustration of what Yurugu might look like if we were trying to encapsulate it with some new age artistic flair. Give a shout out to Izania Travel, who just joined, and Mike Bluell, who just joined or has joined on my Instagram. Shout out to those of you watching me on Instagram. Shout out to those of you who are watching me on Facebook. I'm trying to pull us up so I can at least shout you out and see that you have attended, are attending. If you are on Facebook and I can see you, I will try to give you a shout out. I may not be able to see you. I honestly don't know how Facebook does it. But again, tonight we're talking about Dr. Marimba Ani. So one of the things I'm gonna do, let me stop sharing. Like I said, I just wanted to show that visual. Let's see. And where are we gonna start with? We are gonna start with who and what is Yurugu. So as we move on, as we proceed to give you what you need, like I said, come on over to youtube.com/@the-proper-perspective so you can see and hear what Dr. Marimba Ani says in her own words. as I set up to share the screen and pull this into my YouTube universe. See, here we go. Bear with me for a moment as I pull this up. So here we go. Here it comes. So far, so good. Yurugu. That's the word I use. If you wasn't sure, if you were not sure how to spell it, there you see it on the screen. Yurugu. Yurugu. That's what we're working on tonight. Why do white people hate us? Why do some white people hate us? Let me be more politically correct. So, what we talking about? Let's listen to what Dr. Marimba Ani says. We get this volume turned up as much as possible.
Yurugu comes from Dogon mythology, small group of African people whom Europeans would consider probably primitive, unquote, who have a most complex cosmology. And in it, they talk about Ama, the creator, having created all beings with twin souls, the male and female part, and that represents the whole being. Yurugu was a being that tore himself away from the process of gestation, the process of being born, so to speak, early, before Ama was finished creating him. Because he wanted, in his arrogance, he wanted to compete with the creator, with Ama, and create a better universe, an earth actually, than Ama could create. When he came down from the heavens, came to begin the process of creation, he found that everything that he created was incomplete. That indeed he could not create perfection or anything with life because he himself was incomplete.
Okay, now, if you heard that, what you think about that? What you guys think about that? Let me give a shout out to give a shout out to people in the chat room. I throw your name on the screen. Shout out to Inez Winkler. Shout out. Let's see. Let me give a shout out to Pearl Guardians. Hey, what's going on? How you doing? What's popping for the night? These are people joining me on YouTube. And again, as I said, I got some people on Instagram. I don't see anybody on Facebook, so that's cool. It is what it is. But so let's go back to this. Let's go back to this. Yurugu. Let's go back to Yurugu. There we go. So let's go back to Yurugu. What is Yurugu? Who is Yurugu? Yurugu, it comes from the Dogon people in West Africa, but they have an extensive history of traveling, and there's research that suggests that they came from ancient Egypt. They're rooted in, so to speak, ancient Egypt. They left out of the ancient Egyptian area and ended up in Mali. They are a very interesting and unique group of people, an ethnic group. They have a lot of knowledge about the cosmos, so much so that when Europeans encountered them, and Europeans considered themselves to be the master of all knowledge, and Europeans were trying to talk to them about what the Europeans knew about space, and they got corrected on some things. And they didn't understand how they could get corrected on some things. How could these African people, how could this black group of people know more than us? Well, they got their hat handed to them. And when they got back to Europe, and did the research, they were dumbfounded on how wrong they were and how correct these African people were. That was the Dogon tribe. And you can look them up to find out what exactly it is I'm talking about. Something called Sirius B. But again, so what is Yurugu? Yurugu is an incomplete being in the Dogon mythology, in the Dogon cosmology. I dare I say in the Dogon religion, try to stay away from that word. But those words, religion and mythology, are interchangeable. That may be some strange stuff for some of you people to listen to. A lot of people think mythology is one thing, religion is another. A lot of people think mythology is bad, religion is good. In all actuality, religion and mythology are the same. Way back in the day, if you go all the way back to the beginnings of time, what we call mythology today was called religion back then. If you fast forward an eon into the future, what we call religion today, the futuristic people would call mythology. And that may be something that's hard for you to grasp. I'm sorry if it is, but that's a true statement. That's fact. Religion and mythology are nothing but they are interchangeable. Religion is the feel-good word. Religion is the word that pats ourselves on the back because it's what we believe. And we like to look down on past civilizations, at least when it comes to this. But religion is nothing but a group of organized information centered around a deity that has beliefs and rituals and rules and thou shalls and thou shall nots. And mythology is a group of organized information surrounded by deities that has rituals and rules and thou shalls and thou shall nots. It's a time factor. If you were living for 1,000 years ago, you had a religion. If you're living for 1,000 years from now, you will have a religion. And everybody that looks back in time, they call that group of people mythologists. Here are the myths that those people believed. Religion and myth is the same. Take that for what it's worth. Doesn't mean you're on the wrong track or the wrong path necessarily. Doesn't mean the people 4,000 years ago were on the wrong track, wrong path. It's just the difference. So what we're doing tonight, though, now that I have said my piece on that, we are decoding Yurugu. That is Marimba Ani's blueprint in general, but it can definitively be applied to what's going on in our world today. The MAGA madness, the mayhem from Musk, and Donald Trump's white power moves. You can understand what they're doing if you understand what Dr. Marimba Ani taught about the Yurugu. So, as an introduction, again, if you're on here through Instagram or Facebook, I appreciate your presence. You can drop a comment if you want, and I will do my best to get to it. If you're in the chat, then please feel free to join along. I do have a comment pinned in the chat, so you can respond to the pinned comment. And let's see, what is that pinned comment? What's an example of a hidden European concept that has shaped how we see the world? Drop it in the comment. What's an example of a hidden European concept that has shaped how we see the world? I'm gonna give you a couple, but if you got any, then that's what I want you to do, please. My introduction, the drumbeat of power. So as I do, as I always, and as I have said, welcome back, family. Welcome back. You are watching The Proper Perspective with Shabazz on youtube.com/@theproperperspective. Today, we're breaking down Yurugu, Dr. Marimba Ani's masterwork on how European thought, domination, and deception, keyword, deception, thought, domination, and deception, shapes global power structures. Her insights are more relevant than ever in 2025 as we witness Trump's MAGA movement, Musk's tech imperialism, and even the Republican Party's quiet acquiescence, while Democrats are scrambling to figure out what in the hell's going on. Now, let's see. I got a message here popping off. Let me see what that is. What is this message before I move any further? What's the message? What's the message? Or maybe I don't have a message. Okay, no message. Just bells and whistles going off. I don't know what it is. But now, as the Akon people of Ghana say, if the drum beats, the fool dances. If the drum beats, the fool dances. Now that might be a little harsh for somebody, for some people. But here's the real question. Or here's why I even say that. Why I bring in this African proverb. I try to bring in an African proverb to all of my streams, and I try to make it, provide the wisdom, standing on the shoulders of our giants, and make it applicable to what's going on. This means we need to know who's controlling the drum. It's not just about listening to the music. We got to look and see who's controlling this music. So this means that, if you don't do this, if you don't know who's controlling the music, you could be playing yourself as the fool. And fools are easily manipulated when they hear the right tune. How many times do we see the right song come on and people just get up and start acting like they done lost their mind? Now, ain't nothing wrong with having a good time, but let's just think deeper about this. Musk plays the drum of free speech. That's the drum he beats. Free speech. And people get attuned and start listening and start bigging up. Yep, we want to be on the Elon Musk train. And he uses this drum of free speech and starts selling Teslas and all other kind of things. He bought Twitter. Why? Because he knew he could drum up some more sales using Twitter, using the internet. So he plays the drum of free speech and his fanboys start dancing, even when he bans critics. But I thought this was about free speech. But as soon as somebody says something that he don't like, you get banned. Trump plays the drum of election fraud. And you see how certain folk go crazy. They go so crazy that what happens? January 6th. And even after all the smoke clears, all the dust is settled, and the people who are the problem get thrown in jail, Trump continues playing the election fraud drum, rides it on into the White House, and pardons everybody. Now we got all those hooligans back on the street again. Some of them have even already been arrested again. Weren't even out 48 hours before they got into more trouble. Now, with Doge dismantling entire agencies, the same pattern emerges. Musk and Trump claim they're fighting government waste. You hear this from them every day now. And suddenly people cheer, even as they lose student loan protections, disaster relief funds, financial consumer safeguards. Now you got people jumping online talking about, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. I voted for Trump, but I thought he was going to be good now. My daddy just got deported. My husband just got deported. I voted for Trump, and now I ain't got no workers for my farm. F-A-F-O. F-A-F-O. The billionaire class knows exactly which beats to play to get people to act against their own interests. People have been trying to sound that alarm. Don't trust these folks. How these billionaires really got your interests at heart? Because whether it's MAGA cultists, and I do mean cult, billionaires claiming to save civilization, or Republicans blocking even the most honorable legislation like HR 40 or HR, I think it's 414. The rhythm is always the same, and too many people are dancing to a beat they don't even understand. So that's what I mean with the African proverb that if the drum beats, the fool dances. But Marimba Ani understands who we are up against. She understands very well who we're up against. Now I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to try to put this thing on blast. As she, in one section from her text, Yurugu, which was on the screen earlier, she says interpersonal behavior among Europeans, and by Europeans, she means Europe over there across the Atlantic and the Americans over here. By European peoples is competitive, aggressive, exploitative, and based on a European defined survivalism. One made necessary by the nature of the culture itself. This behavior is, therefore, characterized by hostility and defensiveness. The European personality is above all a product of a conception of self that isolates the individual. How many times have we heard America is all about rugged individualism? That's not a good thing, people. That's not a good thing at all. Rugged individualism is not a good thing. Let me see. Let me give a shout out to who else has joined along. I'm gonna have a hard time reading this. My screen is too small. But Eden Lornayo, Eden Lornayo, thank you for showing up. Thank you for joining in. Got a few people over here on Instagram joining in, and got a few people over here on YouTube joining in. So again, Marimba Ani says the European personality is above all a product of a conception of self that isolates the individual. He is alone and vulnerable, surrounded by other alone and vulnerable people, and therefore very defensive personalities begin to pop up. Once past the level of the primary ideological substratum of the culture, base of the culture, seed of the culture, which tends to bind European individuals together, there is no identification between him and other individuals within the culture. Beyond this, there is no commonality. The European defines himself as their opposite, and his interests as opposed to or in conflict with theirs, meaning at the level of secondary or derived values is determined by the needs of survival among hostile beings, meaning all meaning in life is based on survival in a hostile environment. All meaning in life is based on a hostile environment. That's how they see the world. They see the world as one big giant threat. Shout out to Babyface Lefty for joining the chat on Instagram. So they see the world as one big giant threat. You should be able to see where I'm going with this. The culture into which the individual is born provides him with an individualistic and isolating concept of self. Me, 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 me. That's what their culture is about. And you can see this with Donald Trump, and you can see this with Elon Musk. Even though it's kind of strange that they teamed up, people have already said this team ain't gonna last long. They placing their bets already. Because they teamed up with Vivek Ramaswamy too, and they kicked him off the team soon as the swearing-in ceremony was over. So Dr. Marimba Ani goes on to say, while this culture of theirs fails to provide that individual with a spiritual base of emotional inspiration and support, with these givens, he has no choice but to go about the business of surviving as best he can. He is indeed in a jungle, even if it ain't a real jungle, even if it's a jungle of the mind and not a physical jungle. An initially defensive posture soon becomes aggressively offensive behavior. I got to get them before they get me, even if they ain't paying you no mind. I got to get them before they get me, even if they don't even know you there. The individual perceives that the best way to assure his own survival is to disarm others, to beat them, to win, to get ahead, to usurp the objects of value before they do, to control them. He must do all of these things before they are done to him. And that becomes the golden rule. So Dr. Marimba Ani says, as we are trying to answer this question, do they hate us? I mean, in the short, the answer is yes, they do. If we're trying to figure out why do they hate us? Because we're different. They hate us because we're different. Y'all remember how George Bush used to spit out that propaganda about the Middle East? They hate us for our freedom. They don't hate us. They don't give a rat's about our freedom. We ain't even that free. We have a few technical forms of freedom, but we ain't even that free. They couldn't possibly hate us for our freedom. They hate us because we're different. They hate us because we're not them. They hate us because we don't view the world as a humongous threat. And they don't understand it. Any psychologist will tell you that people tend to hate what they don't understand. They do not understand why we cannot have hate in our hearts. So, as I proceed, Dr. Ani argues that European culture is built on aggressive, competitive, and exploitative survival tactics. It isolates individuals, making them feel alone and defensive, which leads to a mentality of constant opposition. Instead of seeing others as part of a community, the individual sees them as threats to obstacles to conquer. This breeds hostility and a cutthroat, win-at-all-cost mentality. Survival of the fittest. How many times have we heard that? Whether it's whether people are using that phrase as it is attributed to the author correctly or not, the phrase still sticks as the perception of that branch of the human family. Survival of the fittest is how they operate. It's all based on aggression. Imagine a football team if they didn't believe in teamwork and every player was only focused on their own stats, or basketball or baseball, however you so decide. Instead of blocking for the quarterback, the linemen would be trying to score their own touchdowns. The receivers would tackle their own running backs to keep them from getting more yards. And the coach, he wouldn't even call plays. He'd just sit back and let everyone fight for themselves. That's the culture that Dr. Ani is describing when it comes to European American white culture. One where survival means making sure you get yours before anyone else does, even if it destroys the team. They just won't care. As long as I got mine, the rest of you will just have to struggle. And mine becomes an ever increasing amount that can never be enough. I'll be okay if I make $1 million. Then you get $1 million. I'll be okay if I got $10 million. Then you got $10 million. I'll be okay if I got $100 million. I'll be okay if I got $1 billion. I'll be okay if I got $1 trillion. It's a never-ending struggle. It's always empty. It's always void. And it's always, I got to get more. And you in my way. And as long as you in my way, we got a problem. Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, Doge, devils overreaching, grabbing everything, is a perfect example of this survivalist model. Instead of working within the system to improve governance, if you want to take a look at, let me come back to the big screen to make this work properly. Stop sharing. There we go. So if you want to, there's nothing wrong with saying government is spending too much money. It needs to be more efficient. Again, this is the drumbeat that they're playing to suck you in, to lure you in. There's nothing wrong with that. So people jump along, start dancing to the tune. Yep, we need to fix it. and then you look at their actions. How you gonna fix something if you just shut it down? That's not fixing. So you just shut down operations. That's not fixing anything. That's not fixing anything. That's causing more problem. But this is a perfect example of their survivalist thinking. Instead of working within the system to improve governance, this billionaire class, these oligarchs, are seizing control of federal agencies. They're gutting institutions. They're eliminating safeguards that were set up to protect the public. It's not about efficiency, it's about domination. Like I said, if there is a problem within a system, then you analyze the problem and you work to fix it. You don't just pull the plug. That's ridiculous. If you're under the assumption that people are being truthful and honest when they say they're about efficiency. Now, if like Dr. Marimba Ani, you sit back and you have this understanding and you say, well, no, this is an example. This is hostile takeover. This is hostile thinking. This is predatory. This is Yurugu type behavior. Then you don't walk away like, I don't understand what's going on. You walk away like, oh, I know exactly what's going on. See, when you say I don't understand what's going on, then you're stuck. And mentally you're stuck trying to figure out why. But if you do know what's going on, if you have an understanding that this is just mere domination, predatory behavior from a Yurugu-minded people, well, now you can begin to work on a solution because you're no longer stuck with why. You get it. It's about domination. It's about control. It's about power. You don't fall for the okie doke. Another example, take Doge's takeover of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. If ever there was an example, this agency is only about protecting the consumer. And America is a consumer nation. Now, you can easily say whether that's good or bad. I personally think it's a horrible thing, but it ain't about me. It doesn't matter if I think it's a bad thing. The fact remains America is a consumer nation. And as a consumer nation, this bureau was set up to protect the consumers. And to protect the consumers from whom? Not sharks. No, to protect us from corporate exploitation. And under Doge, it was effectively shut down in an instant. They locked out employees. They seized access to regulatory databases. In a true every man for himself move, Musk has positioned himself as both the referee and the star player, ensuring that the game is rigged in his favor. Meanwhile, the people, the actual taxpayers funding the government, are left without any real protection from financial predators. No protections. Just like in Dr. Ani's analysis, the idea of collective well-being completely abandoned. Instead, we get an oligarch treating the federal government like one of his startups, stripping it for parts, firing employees en masse, and rewriting the rules to benefit himself and his allies. Have you heard how much money he's been making each day since Trump got into office? But we're not supposed to care about that. We're not supposed to care. We're supposed to just dance to the tune of he gonna fix it. Government efficiency. Well, when the banks decide, we want you to pay $10 every time you take out a transaction from the ATM. Thank Doge. You can thank Elon Musk and Donald Trump because that's what that protection agency stopped. There was a time when they just started charging fees, and every 2 months they started upping the amount. This month you pay $1. Next month it's $1.50. Next month it's $3. Next month it's $5. That Consumer Protection Bureau said, you can't do that. A lot of y'all banks are going to have to start giving free ATM services. Well, that protection agency is now closed. Not necessarily out of order, out of business, but closed. Operations have been halted under the guise of we gonna fix it. There was nothing broke. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. There's nothing to fix. Let me share my screen. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. If you're on Instagram or Facebook, I'd love it if you came on over to youtube.com/@theproperperspective. youtube.com/@theproperperspective. But let me share my screen just to try and decorate my screen with another interesting graphic display of what Yurugu might look like if we were to take a digital deep dive into artistic creativity, so you can see on the screen what Yurugu might look like. So again, just to give you an idea, and as you can see from the picture, Yurugu is all about stomping out anything and everything. So I just wanted to share that. Now, let me see if I can add this to the screen. Go back to the words of Dr. Marimba Ani. The workings of Yurugu. Yurugu, originally named Ogo, is described in Dogon mythology as acting with anxiety and impatience. So even you yourself, we are Black people, we are African people, we are melanated people, children of the sun. But if we begin to act out of anxiety and impatience, we can become Yurugu. Yurugu can be something that you are born into, or it can be something that you can become. So be careful of the drum that you dance to. When you are acting out of anxiety and patience, you are incessantly restless in search of the secrets of Ama. Now, what is Ama? Ama is God in the Dogon language system, mythology system, religion system. Now, I don't want to hear anything about, well, God is God. And no, God is just 3 letters in the English alphabet. God is just 3 letters in the English alphabet, standing for the supreme deity, the supreme power. However you choose to call it. If you like the Arabic language, then you say Allah. If you like the Yoruba language, then you say Oluwa, then you say Oludumare. If you like the Igbo language, then you say Chukwu. If you like Zulu language, then you say Unkulunkulu. We all talking about the creator. We're not getting bogged down into the specific ritualistic systems of each individual religion, at least not right now. At least not right now. So when you are in search of the secrets of Ama, the creative principle, and you're in search for it because you want to gain possession, you are behaving like Yurugu. Yurugu is known for his aggressiveness and incompleteness. He is in a state of solitude, having been deprived of his female principle. He is also impotent. That don't have to be on the bedroom side of things. When Yurugu, also known as the pale fox, reaches his final form of development, he is the permanent element of disorder in the universe. Now, if you are someone that likes to study ancient Egypt, if you are familiar with the Kemetic teachings and principles and ideas, then you might say, hey, Yurugu sounds like Sutek. Yurugu sounds like Isfet. And I would say, okay, yeah, we on the same wavelength right now. When Yurugu, the pale fox, reaches his final form of development, he is the permanent element of disorder in the universe, the agent of disorganization, agent of chaos. He was marked from birth for failure and destined to remain forever incomplete, to search perpetually for his female principle. He is not only the agent of cosmic disorder, but also of psychological individualization. And again, these are the words of Dr. Marimba Ani, coming from her textbook or her book, Yurugu. I need to put that back up on the screen so that I can, let's see, where is that? Where is that? Where is that? That's not it. Let me get up. That's not it. Oh, yeah. So that screen is over here now. Let me pull this back up on this.
Yurugu comes from Dogon mythology. Small group of African people whom Europeans would consider probably primitive, unquote, who have a most complex cosmology. And in it, they talk about Ama, the creator, having created all beings with twin souls, the male and female part, and that represents the whole being. Yurugu was a being that tore himself away from the process of gestation, the process of being born, so to speak, early, before Ama was finished creating him. Because he wanted, in his arrogance, he wanted to compete with the Creator, with Ama, and create a better universe, an Earth actually, than Ama could create. When he came down from the heavens, came to begin the process of creation, he found that everything that he created was incomplete. That indeed he could not create perfection or anything with life because he himself was incomplete. Mm-hmm. He then.
So again, there you have it from Dr. Marimba Ani. Yurugu is the being that is incomplete and always in search of grasping power, especially from the God. And every time he makes an attempt at doing it, he realizes his creation is incomplete because he doesn't have what it takes. This speaks to the problem that they have. They are disconnected from the universe. They are disconnected from Ama, from God. So why do they hate us? Because they know we are not disconnected from the universe. We are the children of the sun, and they can't stand it. So in a nutshell, this would be the answer to the question. Dr. Marimba Ani, this book, Yurugu, an African-centered critique of European cultural thought and behavior. If you don't have it, you should get it. It's a deep text. It's a thick text. If you don't like reading, I don't know what to say to you. I don't know what to say to you if you don't like reading. But it's very informative. Now, let me see if I can pull up my. So here we go. Another word for you. Word for the night. From the Kiswahili language. Asili, A-S-I-L-I, asili, which means seed or essence or nature. The mega myth of the golden era and white nostalgia. Donald Trump's Make America Great Again. This movement is a textbook example of the European aesthetic, the European asili, its nature, origin, and essence. MAGA is built on a myth, the idea that America was once great and must be restored. Not only is it a myth, it's a half myth. Even if you think America was great at one time, then the question becomes, great for whom? It wasn't great for the black folk. It ain't been great for the brown folk. The red folk almost got wiped out into non-existence. It wasn't great for them. Yellow people ain't had it great either. It's only been great if it has been great for one group of people. And if you analyze their own personal, their own individual, it's only been great for a small percentage of them. Dr. Ani says the European worldview requires myth making that erases oppression, making it seem necessary, even noble. This is why they're trying to say, we ain't gonna teach none of that black stuff in school. We getting rid of DEI. We getting rid of Black history. We getting rid of Black History Month. Yeah, it don't matter. Don't tell me, but Donald Trump brought it back. Donald Trump ain't did nothing. We ain't asking for it. We ain't never needed him for it. And we still rocking and rolling whether he signed a piece of paper or not. But MAGA's trying to erase everything. And remember, when they say erase, erase is just another word for genocide. Paper genocide, physical genocide. But this worldview of theirs requires the myth of past greatness. So they have to erase anything that shows the truth. And they want to say, well, there can be, we don't need critical race theory. All critical race theory is the truth. Without critical race theory, your children would still be learning that Christopher Columbus discovered America. It's critical race theory that said, hold on. There were people here already. That's what they want to get rid of. I don't care how you boil it down. I don't care how you define it. At the end of the day, critical race theory is just a big fancy word for telling the truth. Telling it like it is, like they used to say in the 70s. This is exactly what MAGA does. They deny history. They glorify oppression. And they demand that power be returned to its rightful place in the poems of the Envelopians. And this brings us to another powerful proverb from the Wolof people. And again, if you notice, if you didn't notice, then catch this. I'm using the proverbs from West African cultures from whence we came. There are groups of us who descend from the Akan people. There are groups of us who descend from the Wolof people. That's why I'm using these proverbs. The Wolof people of Senegal say, when the roots of a tree begin to decay, it spreads to the branches. When the roots of a tree begin to decay, it spreads to the branches. So if you consider America to be the tree, the roots of this tree have begun to decay. They began decaying 400 years ago when they got this whole project experiment started. And the decay has been growing and growing and growing. The root of America, white supremacy. That's the real term. We like to push that term to the side and just say racism. Truth be told, racism and white supremacy is the same thing. They're synonyms for each other. But we much rather deal with the word racism than white supremacy. But racism is white supremacy. Period, point blank, end of story. And that's the root of America. The original sin of America is the white supremacy that washed ashore with the blood of the Native American and the blood of the enslaved African. And white supremacy has never been fully addressed. Instead, that decay has spread into voter suppression, attacks on Black history, and even the new Jim Crow style policies and the rollbacks, getting rid of DEI. This corruption, this spreading like gangrene, European survivalist ideology, as Dr. Ani describes, has led to global colonialism, economic exploitation, and environmental destruction. Now, we see this ideology at work in Doge's aggressive dismantling of governance itself. It started with the CFPB, that Consumer Financial Protection Board. It's spread to the Department of Education. It's spread to the Department of Treasury. It's spreading to the IRS. It's spreading to FEMA. It's going everywhere. And it won't stop. Won't stop, can't stop, don't stop, won't stop. When corruption is embraced at the highest levels, it infects the entire system, top down, bottom up. MAGA is not about policy. It's about maintaining European white dominance, European white male dominance. MAGA is not about policy. MAGA is about maintaining European white male dominance. And all those white women that voted for him, that voted for Trump, are doing their best to help maintain that white male dominance. Another picture. So again, we also look at Elon Musk, tech imperialism in disguise. This is all about control. This is all Yurugu politics. This so-called visionary who claims to save humanity while reinforcing every white supremacist structure that exists, even pumping up the lies about the whites in South Africa being mistreated. How can the people who own 90% of the land be mistreated? Unless the definition of mistreatment is just to be told the truth. Y'all don't belong here. Oh my. Now, Dr. Marimba describes European power this way: a system that advances technology and knowledge, but only in service of control, not in service of liberation, not in service of freedom, not in service of unity. Control. And that's what they're doing. They dancing around every government agency talking about we got to control it. We got to run it. When they found out the Supreme Court can tell you what to do, they said, we don't got to listen to them. When they found that the Congress can tell you what to do, they said, we don't got to listen to them. They all about control. They don't care about checks and balances. And if you're so American, you're supposed to care more about checks and balances than anything else. That's supposed to be the foundation of the country. And what are they doing? Running ripshod all over. Yeah, well, we'll do what we want to do. And going on the world stage and telling other European governments, y'all need to be more like us. That's what J.D. Vance was saying. Whether you look at Musk's adventures with AI, with space colonization, or his control over social media, everything that they're doing is all about reinforcing white dominance. The same colonial mindset that justifies stealing Africans and murdering Native Americans. Now they're trying to go into space. What you think they're going to do if they do actually find some people? If they do actually find some beings, if they get to Mars and find some beings on Mars, what do you think they're going to do? You think they're going to have a peace party? Or they're going to try up there what they did everywhere they did down here? They came to America, murder. They came to Brazil, murder. They went to Australia, murder. They going to all of a sudden change? The same European logic that dehumanized us through slavery is now going to dehumanize, is now going to be send intelligent machines that reflect the biases of their creators when they get up there. And even with AI, it's the same thing. Musk claimed to support free speech, and he got on Twitter and started banning anybody that said something he ain't like. And the biggest group of people on Twitter now is supposed to be the white nationalists. Shout out to Divinely Created One. Capitalism as well, doing whatever it takes to maintain power. Exactly. Capitalism is merely the seed, the birth child, the love child of Yurugu thinking. First, you got to have a thought, then you got to have a system that's designed to make that thought manifest. That's what capitalism is. So shout out to Divinely Created One on Instagram. If you are tuning in, please come on over to youtube.com/@the-proper-perspective. So as the Igbo people of Nigeria say, what I tell you, I told y'all I was going to talk about, I embed, I include African proverbs from the groups of people that made up our stock. If people want to say, you know, you guys, if some clowns want to say we are a different people because we came over here like in gumbo and we got all mixed up, okay, that might be true. But from that gumbo, before you enjoy the gumbo, you still got to put each individual part in there. Some of us descend from the Igbos of Nigeria. And the Igbos say when the rain falls on the leopard, it does not wash off its spots. What does that mean? When the rain falls on the leopard, it does not wash off its spots. This means that no matter how much someone pretends to change, their true nature remains. So you can get up here and dance around and talk about free speech. I know you lying. We know you lying. Dr. Marimba Ani knows you lying because that's what you do. You can get up here and say you trying to save the world. We know you lying. Just like the Microsoft, the ex-Microsoft guy, Bill Gates, talking about he want to save the world. He want to save the world for the elite oligarchs. He want to kill people first. Musk claimed Twitter was going to become a haven for free speech, yet he censors critics and boosts propaganda. Trump rebranded himself as a fighter for the people. Well, he is a fighter for the people, for the Yurugu people. He ain't fighting for everybody. He's hardly fighting for the Yurugus. He got the Yurugus tricked. He's fighting for the oligarchs of the Yurugu people. And his policies overwhelmingly benefit the mega rich, the ultra rich. Doge follows the same script. They claim to be about efficiency, yet their goal is power consolidation. They claim to be rooting out corruption, yet they're the ones that are corrupt. They're enabling the biggest grift of all, billionaire control over this democracy. And they claim to love democracy. They love control. Just because something looks new doesn't mean it isn't the same old game. New bottle, same old wine. Whether it's plantations, Jim Crow, or tech billionaires hoarding power, this system keeps reinventing itself. But the spots remain the same. I don't care how much rain come down, them spots ain't changing. Them spots ain't changing. Every time they lose, they go right back in the war mode and figure out how do we get it back. They did that they've done it with slavery. They've done it when they lost the battle for slavery. They came up with sharecropping. When they lost the battle over sharecropping, they came up with Jim Crow. When they lost the battle over Jim Crow, they just started denying rights. When the civil rights kicked in, they started suing for reverse racism. They never stop. It's always about power and control. Why? Because that's what's in their genetic makeup. Yurugu, incomplete being that must have control. I don't even know if I want to talk about HR 40. I may not want to talk about HR 40. I'm kind of, I'll skip on down. The Ma'afa, Ma'at, and Sankofa, the path forward. The path forward. Dr. Ani teaches us that we must understand 3 key African concepts to break free. We must understand the Ma'afa. That's the disaster or the great disaster. The ongoing oppression of African people is worldwide. I'm sick and tired of these people saying we need to focus just on over here in America. The whole world is focusing on global politics, and you want to stay in your backyard as if you had the power, the strength, or the organization to stay in your backyard. Now, that doesn't mean that you give up the fight for your backyard, but you better at least recognize that you're fighting the same beast. Ma'at means truth, balance, justice, at least, in the short run of it. There's a few other adjectives that can be ascribed to it, but it's the principles that guide our fight. And Sankofa. What is Sankofa? Go back and get it. If you forgot something, go back and get it. A lot of times, I know you've heard that. Once we were brought over here, it's a great, It's a great quote. Public Enemy used it. I believe it was Khalid Muhammad or Dr. Khalid Muhammad, but I'm not sure, so don't quote me on that. I love that brother anyhow. Shout out to that ancestor. But once we were brought over here, we were robbed of our language, robbed of our names. We lost our religion, our God. And many of us, by the way we act, we even lost our minds. So we lost a lot of ish, but we rebuilt. Sankofa says, if you forgot something, go back and get it. So we lost our culture. We can go back and get it and rebuild, as we have been doing. But we can always make it better. We lost our names. Queen Mother Moore said, just pick one. You know, I've been down the path of I want to get an African name. I want to go through the African ceremony, naming ceremony. And, you know, I get it. I've been there. Queen Mother Moore said, look, just pick one. You might not get a chance to go back. Just pick one. They all ours. We are the gumbo. So we got Igbo, we got Wolof, we got Akan, we got Yoruba. It's all in us. We got Hausa. So just pick one. So I picked Shabazz with the proper perspective. Go back and get it. Just go back and get it. Go back and fetch it. So Sankofa is one of our leading principles. The need to reclaim our cultural knowledge in order to move forward. What did Marcus Garvey say? A man without history is a tree without roots. So go back and fetch it. We live in an information age. 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, we could say, yeah, we lost it. But now we have prime opportunity to regain it in whichever way we want to. Dr. Ani writes, the African diaspora represents the confrontation of two worldviews. And this is something similar to what Dr. W.B. Du Bois said. Two worldviews, two warring souls, double consciousness. And don't come at me with, yeah, Du Bois was a sellout. You don't know the half about Du Bois. Every leader in our history has done some good and done some bad. He did some bad. He should be chastised for the bad that he did. But he did some good. He should be recognized for the good that he did. And we need to stop throwing our leaders out because of the bad that they did. Yurugu don't do that. Yurugu gather around the bad and the good. But Dr. Ani says the African diaspora represents the confrontation of two worldviews, one that is spiritual and communal, and one that is materialistic and dehumanizing. Now, who you think we are? And that's a quote from Let the Circle Be Unbroken by Dr. Marimba Ani. Let the Circle Be Unbroken. Another good book you need to check out. We represent the spiritual and communal. In South Africa, they call it Ubuntu. The spiritual and communal. We exist because we are. We are connected and interconnected. What happens to you happens to me. What happens to me happens to you. Whether we physically feel it and recognize it or not, this is the spirit of universalism. They represent materialistic and dehumanization, control, manipulation, power. Our struggle is not just political, although it is very political, but our struggle is also spiritual. We are not just fighting policies. We are fighting a worldview that seeks to erase us. Why do they hate us? Or do they hate us? Yes, they hate us. They want to erase us. Erase means genocide. Our fight is political and spiritual, and they are out to erase us. That's why they're trying to take away everything. Everybody wants to say, well, or some of the black folks, some of us in our communities want to say DEI won't even that important. Even if I agree with you, DEI helped more white women than it did black people. And they still getting rid of it, knowing that it helped more white women than it did black people. Why? Because they know it helps some black people. They don't want us to ever get a foot up. If it helps 7 white women and 3 black people, 2 black men or 2 black women and 1 black man, they saying get rid of it because those Negroes shouldn't have got no help. Then white women would just have to figure out who they need to get with. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, I've been going for a good little minute. Again, thank you for tuning in. Dr. Marimba Ani gave us the blueprint. And everything happening today, Trump, Musk, they're ignoring or dismantling of any policy that has any kind of assistance for Black people. The GOP's war on history, Florida saying you can't even talk about, they won't even let you talk about Martin Luther King in Florida, let alone Malcolm X, let alone Nat Turner or Gabriel Prosser. It's all just another chapter in the same old story. We must recognize the asili, the essence, the nature behind these powers or behind these power moves and stop dancing to their drum. Because as Dr. Ani teaches us, to challenge European hegemony, and if you don't know what hegemony means, power, we must first reject its control over our consciousness. That's an excerpt from Yurugu. We must reject control over our consciousness. And that's exactly what we're here to do at The Proper Perspective. Dr. Marimba Ani's Yurugu isn't just an abstract analysis. It's a blueprint for understanding the world today. Doge's systematic dismantling of governance isn't about efficiency. It isn't about cutting waste. It's about oligarchs seizing control by destabilizing institutions. Doge really means devils of greed and excess. Doge really means dominators of global exploitation. Musk and Trump aren't building anything new. They're looting a burning house. A burning house. Yeah, it was Martin Luther King that said, "I fear I may have integrated my people into a burning house." This house has been burning since the 60s at the very latest, at the very least. And they're trying to do what? They just want control over it. They want all control. Shout out to Box Monster who joined in on Instagram. Shout out to Lou Cipher who joined in on YouTube. And Lou Cipher says, "Only a fool tests the deepness of a river with both feet." Now that's an African proverb I can get behind. So shout out to Lou Cipher for dropping that jewel on us. Only a fool tests the deepness of a river with both feet. But Musk and Trump aren't building anything new. They're looting a burning house and calling it a renovation. And just like in Yurugu, their ultimate goal isn't progress. It's control through disorder, control through chaos. They telling you the house is on fire and they're grabbing the jewels out the safe. Now, this concludes my discussion. It was something else I was going to talk about, but now it has slipped my mind. But if you've been tuning in, this has been Shabazz with The Proper Perspective on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I would love it if you came on over to YouTube. I would open up the lines, or not the lines. I ain't got no lines. Let me stop lying. I would invite a guest to come on to continue the conversation. I could send a link and you could jump on if you're over in the chat. But this has been the bulk of my presentation. Dr. Marimba Ani has been the focus because of her outstanding work in helping us to understand who we are up against.
Realized that he was missing a part of himself. So he goes back to how European culture works as a consistent machine for the achievement of European power. And
the European system works as a consistent machine toward achieving European power. Ain't nothing in there for us. When we get ahead, they're going to see if they can knock us off our feet. That's how it's always going to be. So whatever gains we get, we better not rest on our laurels. Again, this is Shabazz with The Proper Perspective. I'm getting ready to sign out. Let me see. Where is? Let's see. Who has joined the cipher tonight? Babylon done outside the box. Yes, invite me to be your guest so we can show. Okay, well, if we got somebody trying to, let me see. I will put the, let me see, invite here. Now, I'll put the link in the chat. If you want to jump on this, I'm gonna see about what's popping. I haven't done this too many times, ladies and gentlemen, so we gonna see if this is an appropriate guess. I hope this is an appropriate guess. If it's not, then I'm gonna have to block them or something. But the link is in the chat. Babylon done outside the box. I don't know what to say about that. I don't know who this is, but we gonna see if they coming along. The link is in the chat. The link is in the chat. What's your question? If you maybe that'll be even better. What's your question, Babylon? Drop your question and then we'll see if we can entertain this. I ain't up for no games though. I'll tell you that right now. What is it that you're trying to show, Babylon done? Okay, the link is in the chat. Okay, I hear something now. Babylon done is coming along. BDO, you do not have you don't have a picture, you don't have a face. Say something so I can hear your voice.
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you loud and clear. What's going on?
Nothing much, brother.
Nothing much, brother.
This is my first
This
time
is my
hearing your
first time
show,
hearing your show. Okay, I
and I
appreciate
was
you for taking
expecting
I
for
was
you to
expecting for
invite me
you
as a
to
guest
invite me as a
later,
guest
not right
later,
now,
not right now.
but I couldn't
But I
pass up the
couldn't pass up
opportunity
the
to come on
opportunity
to
to come
talk to
on
you
to talk to you
and let you know
and
that I
let you
was
know that I
interested.
was interested. Okay, well, thank you for that.
But,
Thank you for that.
but yeah,
Yeah,
lastly, but to
lastly,
say
but to
something
say
on the
something on
topic,
the
because
topic,
I just
because I
really
just
came
really
in
came in. Okay.
on the
On the
DEI topic,
DEI topic. Okay.
I,
I,
I
I,
can
I
see
can
that
see that it was
a
a
plus
plus
for
for us
because
as
I have been.
well, because I have been saying for years. Okay. BDO went out. Babylon done outside the box went out. I don't know if that was intentional or a technical glitch. I'll wait a minute or two. I'll give it some time to see if it was a technical glitch. He will come back in. Let's see. Let's see. Well, I'm not seeing a comeback. Well, he said he was trying to speak on something. I didn't fully get it, but since he gone, he said the feed failed. Okay, sorry about that. Well, if you want to type your comment, I can respond that way. So we can, I'll give him a minute or two to see if he's going to type anything. Let's see, anybody else? Okay, he looked like he's coming back now. And give a shout out to Okay, I can't read that. Phantom TA. I can't read that. Shout out to Box Monster. My reading skills are failing me, but thank you to everybody that is joining in on Instagram and on YouTube and Facebook. And Babylon Dunn got knocked out again. Babylon Dunn got knocked out again. So, with that being, I'm gonna give him a few more seconds to see if he gonna come back in, and if not, then we're gonna go ahead and close out. He did say something about DEI. I think he said that he felt that DEI had some positives. I'm not 100% sure if that's what he was saying. If anybody else has an opinion on DEI, I'd love to hear it. I'm gonna mess this name up, but give a shout out to Fan M Tiayiske. I'm so sorry because I can't get that pronunciation to save my life. But let's see. Anybody else in the chat room? Let's see. The feed failed. The stream failed again. Okay, so I guess there's just some problems on somebody's end. I don't think it's my end, but okay, here we go. Okay, Babylon Dunn, you're on again. If you can, try to say what you're saying real quick before the feed fails again.
I will.
I will.
Hey,
Hey,
what I'm
what I'm
saying is
saying is
that
that
DEI
DEI
has
has
positive
positive
from the
from the
perspective that I was
perspective that I
saying.
was saying.
I have been
I
saying
have
that
been
it
saying
should
that it
be
should be
out of the way
out of the way
because it's
because it's
ineffective.
ineffective.
Before they
Before
ever
they
came
ever came
along saying
along
that
saying
Donald
that
Trump or
Donald Trump or
anybody
anybody
was gonna
was gonna
extinguish it,
extinguish it,
Dr. Claude
Dr. Claude
Anderson has
Anderson
spoke
has
on
spoke on
affirmative.
Ah, man, it went out again and he was getting on to something. I don't got the best hearing. It sounded like he was saying DEI was effective, but then it sounded like he was saying DEI was ineffective. So I ain't sure which way he was going. If he was saying it was ineffective, I'm gonna respectfully disagree. Well, no, I'm not gonna disagree with. I'm not saying that it is or is not effective. I'm simply saying that here's the thing. Let's say it was ineffective. There are no systems in operation that is absolutely 100% effective or running the way it should be. But you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Now, if he does come back, I'm gonna let him come back and break it down so we can get like his complete view or whatever. But here's what I'm saying again. Let's say I agree with you that it was ineffective. Okay, so fix it. Like I said earlier at the beginning, there's not anything necessarily wrong with Doge in concept, in principle. Yes, everybody wants things to run efficiently. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. So, Doge could have been a good thing if they went about it the right way. Thank you, fam. The feed does not like me from Babylon Done. Yeah, maybe we can talk in the private chat, or you can hit me up later on the email or something, and we can try to figure out what it is. It could be something with like, are you joining on a phone or are you joining on a computer? Do you have high-speed internet or not? Do you have an Ethernet cable? Sometimes those things have a factor in there. Other than that, if you type your statement, I will put it on the screen and we can rock it out that way. Because I really do want to hear your opinion and your view. But what I'm saying is, even if it's an ineffective program, that doesn't mean that it's not helping anybody. So if you're at a company and you have a DEI program, and under that DEI program, 5 new black people got promotions, and now you're going to get rid of that program. No more black people will might not get those promotions because it didn't hire 10, because it didn't promote 10 people. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't make sense to throw out the program because it is inefficient. what makes sense is to make it more efficient. And so, like, I do know, I'm aware of people in certain companies, private companies. I'm aware of people in certain federal agencies where DEI helped improve relations in the company, either through promotions, hirings, and other workings that just go on in those companies. And so if you get rid of it, then if you get rid of it, then what you're doing is essentially you're closing the door on a window of opportunity that, while it may be helping more white women, that's just the nature of America. Everything in this country is going to help white folks more than it helps black people. The only thing that has ever been like official policy or official policy related, because it's never really been official policy, but the only thing that's been official policy related that would or could help black people only, I'll give you two things. Today in modern times, reparations. Now, I'm not going there. Well, I'm not having that argument. I'm saying reparations is an issue that would only help black people. And the ending of slavery is an issue that would only help black people. Other than that, everything that goes down in this country is going to be designed so that it helps everybody. Obama's little commentary where he said, you do something with the water and the boat rises, so everybody's on the boat. So you improve the ocean and everybody on the boat improves, something like that. Now, whether you're in agreement with him or in disagreement with him, that's not what we're doing right now. This whole thing about DEI, it's not about, does it only help us? And if it doesn't only help us, then get rid of it. That's just ridiculous. All or nothing. All or nothing is what you're saying. You're saying all or nothing in a game, in a world, in politics, where you want all total control. So you're acting just like Yurugu, because they say all or nothing. You get what you can when you can, you make it work, and you keep pushing and moving for more. But again, that's just my extrapolation on DEI. If anybody else wants to join or drop a comment or say something, I welcome your commentary. I welcome your input, and I will continue the conversation if you so desire. Otherwise, like, share, and subscribe. Please do me this favor. Hit the like button. If you have been watching, if you have been paying attention, if you joined in on the chat, I do got that pinned comment up there. But hit the like button. What Willie D say? Smash up the likes. Family, I need you to smash up the likes. Hit that like button. Smash that like button. Y'all know the bell down there in the corner? Click it. Click that bell. Subscribe to the channel. Ain't nothing wrong with that. You get the notification, whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube, you'll get the notification. And the next time I come live, you can jump in earlier. And if there's an issue, we can try to solve it in due time. So here we go. Babylon Dawn says, DEI is inefficient. Okay, well, like I said, I was confused. DEI is inefficient and ineffective insofar as the words diversity, equality, inclusion are arbitrarily and ambiguously defined. Okay. Now, I'm not going to disagree with that. If you want to add, then tell us what you think the words should have been, just to keep, so I can better understand what you're saying. Because from my take, my perspective on it is, I don't necessarily have a problem with those words. I know they are generic, but I also know a little bit about the history of the so-called black struggle in employment relations, in the labor field. What am I talking about? I'm talking about affirmative action. You know, between the 60s and the 70s and into the 80s, once we started getting the jobs, we realized something still ain't right. They still not doing it the way they're supposed to. If we 13% of the population and we only 0.5% of the workers employed, and then when we start to do the deep dive and to study it, they started saying, well, there isn't enough qualified black people. That was the lie. That was the Yurugu lie. But we had to prove that they were lying. And once we went to court and proved that they were lying, we hit them with, okay, here is a program. The program is going to be called affirmative action. Why? Because we've proven that you did wrong. Now you must take affirmative steps to correct what you did intentionally. And so then that program started to work, and then black companies started getting contracts, black workers started getting employment, black resumes started getting read and called for interviews. And then white people did a pushback. This sounds like reverse racism. And then they went to court. And because there was a conservative court placed there mostly by Republicans or Republican-leaning judges or Republican-leaning presidents, they were of the mind that affirmative action is anti-racism or is reverse racism. And they began to dismantle affirmative action. And so what happened? Well, if we don't have to hire 5 black folk, we ain't gonna hire 5 black folk. If we don't have to hire 3 black folk, we ain't gonna hire 3 black folk. We don't have to read those resumes. Fuck them. Excuse my language. I know I shouldn't have said that. It just fell out. And slowly but surely, affirmative action went to the trash can. And unemployment started to rise again. Let me see. Okay, that's okay. Nothing new. So again, once the waves of that calmed down, there was a new wave. How do we rework this affirmative action thing so that we can force these people to do the right thing? Now, you know, I know there's going to be some people say we shouldn't be forcing them. My connection is lost. Ain't that something? Now my connection is lost. What's going on, everybody? If you're still watching on Instagram, I'm pretty sure the connection is solid there. My connection on YouTube seems to have been lost for a second. Let me try to see if it's back. So again, well, maybe not. Let's see. Okay, look, we might be back. Okay, we back. And Babylon Dunn says, diversity is misnomered discrimination. Equity is misnomered equality. Inclusion is misnomered segregation. Yeah, I really wish that your connection was strong, because I would need that to be broken down. How is diversity any kind of discrimination? This sounds like what white people say when they don't want to have to give up any space to anybody. Diversity means if you look around at your employment office and the whole staff is white, yet you have black clients and brown clients and red customers and yellow customers, but everybody that's been employed is white, you don't have diversity. You actually have discrimination. How do you account for this? Especially in the federal government. especially in the federal government. How do you account for this when 98% of the staff is white? The lie was we don't have any qualified black applicants. And when they started digging and doing the research, they was like, well, what about this guy? What about this woman? What about this one? You didn't even call these people. Your employment staff should be diverse. Let's look at how many people have gotten promotions in the past 10 years. Oh, they're all white men. I wonder why. Only the white men have been doing a good job? Is that what you're saying? Well, no, we're not saying that. We're just, that's a coincidence. That's my take on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Across all walks of life, across all levels of staff, it should never be a situation where your entire workforce is overly dominated by white people. Not in a country that is supposed to be a diverse country. Not in a country where Black women themselves have more education and work qualifications than any other group. So if you have Black women at the highest level of education and qualifications, how come y'all ain't hiring none? Because you don't have diversity, equity, and inclusion as part of your program. So again, I don't understand Babylon Dunn's idea of misnomered. The link is still there. It's pinned to the top. If you wanted to try it again, and I'll wait to see if you can. I would love it for someone to give me a breakdown on diversity, equity, and inclusion that makes me change my mind. I'm not saying that because I think that I'm an open-minded person. Anybody? Well, like I said, the link is in the chat. I was wondering if Babylon Dunn outside the box was going to try to click it and come back again. But he says that diversity, equity, and inclusion are misnomered and are ineffective and inefficient. Again, I don't argue against them being inefficient. I might argue against them being ineffective because you're not going to tell me that it's not helping anyone. It's helping people. It may not be helping them as efficiently as it should. But not helping effectively is not the same as not helping at all. And again, the idea is if you have a problem with a system, if the system is a beneficial system, but it's not working correctly, then you fix the system. You don't get rid of the system. So again, I'm over here. I'm over here under the mind. Okay, here we go. Babylon Dunn. So listen up. Let me see. Let me put his statement on the screen. Diversity used correctly in a sentence is African DNA is the most diverse DNA. Look up DNA diversity. Diversity is not many kinds. Diversity is one kind. Okay. Diversity is the range of differences among people, including their backgrounds, experiences, and beliefs. It can also refer to the variety of things in a group setting. Diversity does not have to only be about DNA. The program is not DNA diversity. This policy, this hot button issue that they're talking about, is not DNA diversity. The word is not exclusive to DNA. Now, you can ask AI, you can ask Webster's, you can ask Oxford English Dictionary, but under no category have I ever seen something that is so limiting as to say diversity can only be used with DNA. So to say that it can only be used correctly in a sentence when it comes to African DNA, look, I'm all for the conversation about how diverse African DNA is. I'm all for that concept and that argument and that discussion. But that doesn't mean that the word diversity is exclusively locked into African DNA or any DNA. So, with that, I would respectfully have to disagree entirely with Babylon done outside the box. Now, if I need to, I will put something on the screen. Like I said, you can ask and you shall receive. So, let me see if I can enlarge this. Still not right. We're gonna figure out this diversity definition one way or the other. Definition of diversity. Diversity refers to the presence of differences within a given setting, group, or system. These differences can be cultural, racial, ethnic, gender-based, ideological, socioeconomic, linguistic, or experiential. There's nothing in here that says it has to be talking about DNA. So Babylon says the same argument is used by voters against non-voters to say non-voters do not count or contribute or do nothing, when in fact a non-vote can determine who wins. Somebody please tell me what, look, okay, hold on. Let me slow down. Let me slow down and not respond emotionally. Because again, I think that you're blending in divergent issues. Now, I don't know what you mean by the same argument, but I'm aware that voters have an issue with non-voters. So let's just start there. I'm fully aware that voters have a problem with non-voters. And voters, the voting public says non-voters do not count. And the voting group says non-voters do not contribute and they do nothing. And I don't necessarily think I understand that argument. Whether I agree, that's a little, but I understand that argument. And he said, in fact, a non-vote can determine who wins. Okay, I agree with that. I agree. Because if you look at the last election, the non-voters, well, I think they said something, it was either 36 or 76 million people didn't vote. Yes, that could have influenced the vote. that could have influenced the turnout. Now, you really have no way of knowing how it would have influenced the turnout, but it could have, it definitely would have reshaped the numbers in some way, shape, or form. So there is an argument to be made that voters have issues with non-voters. But I don't see how that is a thing about diversity. Now, Babylon goes on to say, I gave an example of how to use the word diversity correctly in a sentence, and I never tried to define a word. Okay, so again, so you use the word correctly in a sentence. Okay, and I use the word correctly in a sentence. Diversity, and the definition of diversity refers to the presence of differences. So when we talk about employment, we're talking about the presence of differences. The whole employment staff should not be all white, male, heterosexual employees. There should be some black people, some brown people. There should be some men. There should be some women. There should be some old. There should be some new. I mean, not new. There should be some old. There should be some young. That's diversity. So whether you're talking about employment, whether you're talking about federal work, whether you're talking about public corporations or private companies, there should be more than just one type of people or person or human being. You have different types of diversity. You have cultural diversity. So even amongst black people, there are we are a culturally diverse people. Some of us are black Americans. Some of us are black Nigerians. Some of us are black Jamaicans. Those are cultural diverse. That's a cultural diverse group. Some of us are Northerners. Some of us are Southerners. Some of us are East Coast. Some of us are West Coast. That's still cultural diversity. You have racial and ethnic diversity, which still will walk along the same lines that I just said. Racial diversity, black, white, Latinx, or Hispanic, whichever term they're choosing these days. Gender and sexual diversity, men and women, and the letter squad. Cognitive and ideological diversity, different ways of thinking, different ways of problem solving and approaching issues. Some people are left brain, some people are right brain. Some people are gregarious and very social. Some people are quiet and shy. Some people are hands-on thinkers and they can solve problems when they get their hands in the mix. Some people are reflective thinkers and they can solve problems when they just be quiet and think about the situation. Socioeconomic diversity, variations in wealth, education, and class background. Neurodiversity and disability inclusion, recognizing diverse mental and physical abilities. These are all examples of diversity. And so again, DEI is not entirely about black people. Maybe it should have been. Maybe black people were the ones that were leading the charge, as we often do, in the argument and the fight for inclusion. But again, if you do not fight strictly and solely for a black cause, then you must expect other people to jump on the train. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that either side of the coin is good or bad, but I'm saying you cannot, okay, if the only thing you want is a program that specifically helps black people, then you need to call it that and you need to die on that hill. I don't think that the people who got started with the DEI were only thinking about black people. I think they were thinking about black people and others that could benefit. Because generally speaking, that's what black people do. Because we are not Yurugu, because we are communal, because we are spirit based, and we see ourselves as a part of the collective. Now, Babylon Don says, you say throwing DEI out is throwing the baby out with bathwater. Yes, I do say that. Water is analogous to a person not voting, giving up on the Democratic Republican, aka constitutional republic. So you're saying that in my analogy, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. The bathwater is the voting. Okay, the bathwater is the voting or the believing in the Democratic Republic, the constitutional republic, the system of America. Don't throw the voting out. Don't throw the voting out. Okay. Yeah, don't throw the voting out. I did not say don't vote. There is an argument to be made that voting matters. There is an argument to be made that people should vote. I didn't say don't vote. So, okay, maybe I'm understanding what you're saying now, or maybe we're in agreement about a part of it. From an Afrocentric perspective, diversity isn't just about representation, it's about power, agency, and historical context. True diversity doesn't just place different people in a space, it ensures that historically marginalized voices are centered, respected, and empowered. Now, this is so one of the reasons that I am challenging the people who say get rid of DEI because it never helped us. Again, DEI was not supposed to only help black people. Now, I might say I wish it was. Okay, so affirmative action or DEI was never for minorities, women, disabled, or homosexuals or midgets. Ask Dr. Claude Anderson and myself. Well, I'm asking you. I don't necessarily think that I can ask Dr. Claude Anderson. I have a certain modicum of respect for Dr. Claude Anderson, but that doesn't mean I'm going to agree with everything that he says. So I'm asking you to tell me what affirmative action was for if it wasn't for minorities, women, disabled, or homosexuals, or midgets. I'll even ask ChatGPT. Was never meant, you say never for minorities. Let me see if I can just copy and paste this. No, I can't. Diversity equals marginalization, aka discrimination. Okay, if that's what he's saying, then I just flat out disagree. Women, disabled, or homosexuals, etc. So let's see what ChatGPT says. Dr. Claude Anderson's take on DEI. He was never for minorities, women, or LGBTQ. What does he mean? Dr. Claude Anderson, known for his powernomics framework, argues that diversity, equity, and inclusion was never truly meant to benefit Black people or other so-called minority groups, but was instead a repackaged tool to maintain white power structures while creating the illusion of progress. Okay, so he says DEI is a deflection from Black specific policies. Now, I agree with that. I agree that DEI was not something that was supposed to only help Black people. I don't know why Black people think DEI was only supposed to help them. Again, More than likely because we are the ones that end up taking the lead in these types of campaigns. But just because you're at the forefront doesn't mean you're the only one there. First and foremost, if in every campaign that we have taken, we either ask for or we allow allies to come along with us. If we ask for allies to ride with us or we allow allies to ride with us, then they're going to want something in return. Now, Anderson argues that DEI was a bait and switch after the Civil Rights Movement. Initially, policies like affirmative action were meant for Black Americans as reparative justice for centuries of oppression. However, DEI expanded the definition of minority to include white women, LGBTQ, disabled individuals, and other non-Black groups, diluting the original intent. Again, I don't disagree with this. Same thing for the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. We know who it was initially for, but when you live in a nation of laws the way we do, let me try to come back at least to the half screen. When you live in a nation of laws the way we do, whether we like it or not, everything in this country rides on what you write on paper. And every law in this country is written in a broad way to correct a specific problem, but so as to allow for future people who have a problem that is related can use that same law. So let me say, hold on. Vegan Thick LLC joined the chat on Instagram and said, Black people don't think like that. We know and understand more benefit from the policy. Okay, now I think Vegan Thick LLC is sort of veggie backing off of what I'm saying. We know and understand that more people will benefit from the policy. Like I said, there's only one policy in modern day era that could only help Black people, and that's a reparations policy. Other than that, if you create a policy for better schools, that's going to help everybody, not just Black people. There's no such period. If you create a policy for better employment, it's going to help more than just Black people. I'm not saying it should be that way. I'm saying that's how it is. DEI, yes, became a broad inclusion effort rather than a Black economic empowerment policy. Okay, I'm agreeing with that. So Babylon Don says equality is when everybody gets the same amount. Equity is when not everybody gets the same amount. Yeah, this is true. And everybody now, well, let me back up because Babylon Don says diversity equals marginalization, aka discrimination. Now, maybe just because it's sort of like new to my head right now, or I'm not really understanding the way you're breaking down the terms, I don't think diversity equals marginalization. I just don't. I disagree with that. But equality is when everybody gets the same amount. This is true. And equity is when not everybody gets the same amount. Okay, that's a very interesting way to word it. Vegan Thick LLC says, I agree, and the policy will have to specifically say it's for us. Right. If you do not write the policy that says this is for Black Americans, however you want to define Black Americans. So all of those FBA and ADOS people, they want to use that specific term, fine by me. If that's all you want to do is you just want to specify the term, okay, then rock and roll with it. But even if that's your push, if that's your shtick, then get into the policy debates and get it done and stop with all of the hate conversation that you're doing. But when you say equity is when not everybody gets the same amount, that's a tricky way to say things. Equity is when everybody gets what they're needed so that they can be equally competitive out the gate. Now, Let's see if I can find what I mean. Let's see if I can find what I mean. I was on another show and I used this. So see if we can make this as big as possible. Again, see if you left Instagram and came on over to youtube.com/@theproperperspective, you'd be able to see this beautiful screen share that I'm doing. This is in response to Babylon Dawn outside the box, who says equality is when everybody gets the same amount. Equity is when not everybody gets the same amount. That's, to me, that's a tricky definition. But on the screen, I have this image, and it shows equality. And so we have a group of people. I'll describe it. So in each image, there's an image for equality, an image for equity, and an image for justice. Now, in the equality image, we have a group of people, 3 people trying to watch a game. While the game is going on, all 3 people are behind a fence. Now, the 3 people are of various heights. There's a tall person. He's so tall, he could really see over the fence without any help. There's someone else. The second person is medium-sized height. In order to see very well over the fence, they would need some help. And then there's a midget, since he brought up midget anyhow. And there's a midget. And the midget can't see over the fence at all, period. So equality is everybody gets the same thing. So you get a box that is of the same height. You get a box that is of the same height. And you give all 3 of them a box. So now the 7-foot guy is standing on top of a 3-foot box. So he's effectively now 10 feet tall. He can see even better. The 5-foot woman is now on a 3-foot box. And now she can clearly see the game. And the midget is on a 3-foot box. And he still can't see the game. That's what equality is. And that's what Black people realized. Equality does not fix the problem. If everybody gets the same amount, what happens to the people who still cannot watch the game? Equality is not what we were fighting for. That was a misstep. So equity became the new call. Equity, and for people watching on Instagram or Facebook, I'm trying to describe these images because you can't see what's on the screen. So in the equity picture, you have the 7-foot guy who doesn't get a box. He doesn't need one. He can already see the whole entire game just standing there over the fence. The woman gets a box, and now she can clearly see the whole game without having to stand on her tippy toes. And the midget gets 2 boxes. The midget gets 2 boxes, each one 3 feet in length. And so now standing on 2 boxes, the midget can now see the game. So everyone has been prepared. Everyone has been prepared effectively based on who they are and where they are in this game of life. That's what equity is. No, everybody does not get the same amount. There's no reason for a 7-foot tall person to get a box boost in order to see the game. Understand this metaphor and this analogy. Now, if you want to deal with justice, and we ain't got there yet, you would remove the fence that blocks anybody's view because it's made of all wood. And you would put in a new fence that is see-through. And now you don't need boxes. Now you don't need boosters because everybody can see the game clearly from where they stand. We ain't there yet as a society. We can get there through equity. Equity is the concept of affirmative action, thus producing equity. Now, Babylon Dawn says DEI is for all minorities, women, disabled, and homosexuals, not specifically for Black people, aka the enslaved and oppressed, not disadvantaged nor underrepresented. I don't disagree with you there. I've been saying that the whole time. DEI is not just for Black people. I wish it was, but it wasn't. It wasn't just for Black people when it was started. It wasn't written just for Black people. Again, it may have been, we may have, parts of the community may have, hold on. Let me correct some of my, sending the wrong messages out. We may have mistakenly thought that DEI was just for us because we were the ones arguing and fighting for it the most. We do that a lot. But just because we're the ones at the front of the army doesn't mean the rest of the army isn't going to eat at the dinner table once the victory has been acquired. Now, I'm all for creating a policy. I'm all for creating programs that only serve Black people. But in order to do that, Black people have to gather together to work on that. Black people have to unite to work on that. We wouldn't hardly, well, I'm not even going to say that. Sometimes it's easy to say we wouldn't even need allies if we all stuck together. But that ain't true. When you live in a country where you are 13% of the population, and I don't care if you want to say, I don't trust that statistic. That is the statistic on record. So when you live in a country where you are 13% of the population, you're always going to need allies. You got to give to get. That's how the game of politics is played. As long as there is going to be a fight for a policy, that means you're fighting for something that has to come from Uncle Sam. Everybody, all the FBAs and the ADOS that want to say, this is a fight for justice. Yeah, you're asking for justice from Uncle Sam. You're asking for justice from the government, from the lawmakers, from the people who believe in voting, let alone the people who are responsible for the injustice that you were given. But if you are asking for justice from people who only know how to enact forms of types and styles and percentages of justice through the voting block, you're going to always need allies. How is 13% of the population, even if every last adult who can vote votes, how is that going to vote in a policy just for us? I just don't see it happening. It's not mathematically possible for all the scientific brothers and sisters out there. That doesn't mean don't fight for it. It simply means don't fight for it. It simply means you're going to have to there's going to have to be some give and take. You're not going to usher in a policy that is just for Black people, when the only way to usher in any policy is through voting, is through working in Congress, is through working through the Senate. Now, if you really want to get something just for black people, you had to be like Malcolm X and go to the United Nations. That's another whole game in and of itself. That's a whole nother game. And I'm for it. I'm with it. Speaking of reparations and speaking of the United Nations, I will have you know more than once the United Nations has weighed in on this issue. More than once, the United Nations has weighed in on this issue. This is why I feel like we should be taking the route that Malcolm X took anyhow. If I go back to this screen share, in March of 2024, the United Nations chief calls for slavery reparations to overcome generations of discrimination. Again, here is a policy that would only be for black people, for black Americans, for FBA and ADOS. United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres called on Monday for reparations over the transatlantic trafficking of enslaved people as a way to tackle its legacy in today's society, including systemic racism. From the 15th to the 19th century, understand that from the 15th to the 19th century, at least 12.5 million Africans were kidnapped, forcibly transported on European ships and merchants, and sold into slavery. Those who survived the brutal voyage ended up toiling on plantations in the Americas, mostly in Brazil and the Caribbean, while others profited from their labor. Now, why am I showing this? I'm showing for two reasons. For one, because as Babylon Dawn is saying, DEI wasn't just for us. The only policy that is just for us is reparations. Period. End of story. There is no other policy that is just for us. And if you want that, you probably going to have to go outside of the realm of Uncle Sam. And the other reason I'm showing it is because there's too many people that like to say, we in this on our own and don't nobody else care. And all I'm here to say is at least twice, once in 2024, and even as far back as 2016. So don't say, oh, they only jumping aboard now because the FBA has been causing so much problems and bringing it to the forefront. Back in 2016, there was no FBA movement. And in 2016, the UN panel says that the U.S. owes reparations to African Americans. So Malcolm X's plan, Malcolm X's goal of getting the UN to begin weighing in on our issue is in full effect. And it's so very interesting that when the UN starts to step up their game, there is now this new movement that says, let's just keep it in America. And that's supposed to be a homegrown, just for us movement that benefits us. I don't think so. Now, Babylon Dawn says, now you see you can have equality and not equity, yet you cannot have equity and not equality. Yet you admit or agree equality is unfair and equity is fair. A quasi-contradiction. Okay, maybe you misheard. I never said equality was the goal. Just because the program, no, hold on. I don't know what you're talking about. The program is diversity, equity, and inclusion. The DEI programs have when they were started, they were not about equality. I haven't said anything, not intentionally. I have not said anything intentionally to suggest that I am in favor of equality. I said I was in favor of the DEI programs, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I am not contradicting myself. However, I appreciate your contribution to the show. I'm just not necessarily following your statements, your logic. Shout out to DDan724 who joined on Instagram. Again, I appreciate you joining on Instagram and Facebook. I can't never find the Facebook group. But I would appreciate it if you jumped on over to youtube.com. I would appreciate it if you jumped on over to youtube.com. So I got a couple of other messages coming in. Like, share, and subscribe, ladies and gentlemen. youtube.com/@theproperperspective. Hit that like button. I like the way Willie D said, smash up the likes, family. Smash up the likes. That's what I will like you feel. That's what I want you to do. Smash up the likes. Hit that like button. Click that bell for the notifications so you could get all of the so you could be notified every time I go live. And if you can, share the link, share this channel with somebody you think would appreciate and tune in. Another thing that I do is I try to shout out all of my creative pursuits. So you will see following on the screen. Check out my merch shop. I got the link there. Check out my merch shop if you don't mind. And the link is in the chat. The link is in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. The link is in the chat to my merch shop. I will show you for a hot second. At least I will try to. This is my merch shop, ladies and gentlemen. Black Powered on teespring.com. One of my favorite shirts. The RBG Heroes. Period. The termination of the desire to engage further. Now I might say period to anybody that's really against DEI. Because I don't really want, if you're against DEI, I got a problem with you. But again, that's my merch shop, ladies and gentlemen. That's my tag on the UN. Let me click that. Stop sharing. Come back to the main screen. Let's see if anybody else wants to say something. Babylon Dawn, I thank you for your contribution. Even though I have been very critical of what you're saying, even though I have disagreed a bit with what you're saying, I do appreciate you contributing, and I do appreciate the fact that you are up on and aware of some of the important thinkers. I don't have a problem with Dr. Claude Anderson in the grand scheme of things. Just because I disagree with some of what he says doesn't mean I don't see him as a valuable contributor to Black thought. So again, anybody else coming along? I was gonna plug a couple of other things, but I'm gonna leave that alone for now. Hit the like button, leave comments, share this video. Come on over to youtube.com/@theproperperspective, and we can keep the conversation going. I'll give it a minute or two to see if anybody is going to jump on over. If not, then like I said this before, and then Babylon Dawn jumped on with some real good information. So let's see. Close that out. Close this out. Hit the like button, leave comments, share the video, smash up the likes, family. Smash up the likes. I need you to smash up the likes. I'm biting Willie D. Yeah, I don't care. Now, so we've talked about Dr. Marimba Ani. She is a highly respected elder in the community. Her work, one of her works is Yurugu. One of her works is Let the Circle Be Unbroken. Let's see if I can find it again. There we go. Yurugu, an African-centered critique of European cultural thought and behavior. So that's one of the works I wanted to make sure that I highlighted. I just want to make sure that you see that text on the screen. You can purchase that book on Amazon. Yurugu, an African-centered critique of European cultural thought and behavior. And with that, okay, Babylon Dawn says, equality is giving everyone the right to a universal box of equal size, yet equity is giving each one the right to a particular box of unequal size. Yes, of unequal size, but it is a size. Again, I think, I kind of think you're trying to be tricky with your wording. Yes, it's of unequal size. Now, if you're not careful, unequal size sounds wrong. But yes, it's unequal size, but it is a size that befits the situation. So if one person needs a 6-foot box in order to see over the fence, and another person only needs a 2-foot box in order to see over the fence, yes, there will be unequal sizes, but those unequal sizes befit the situation. The person who needs the 6-foot box gets the 6-foot box. The person who only needs 2 feet gets 2 feet. So unequal does not necessarily mean unfair. And so diversity, equity, and inclusion, and reparations itself. Reparations is needed so that Black people will be still in the game of financial and economic wherewithal. It balances the scales based on all of that which we have been robbed. So let me see. So again, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Shabazz with the Proper Perspective. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. I'm getting ready to close this out. Like, share, and subscribe is what I want to say. Like, share, and subscribe. And let's see. Oh, I got to change this. What am I about to do? We're going to rock on out. We're going to rock on out with the theme song.
Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. The proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection, and whose mouth is mumbling trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection, and whose mouth is mumbling trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. Break it down with the proper perspective.